Good afternoon, everybody. I think we might start with a couple of things. Firstly, a little bit of audience participation. I know this is 2:45 in the afternoon of a day that started very early for everybody. I just said hello in English, and I'm reminded when I travel back home to the Pilbara, where there are 31 languages, that whenever I used to travel as a younger person, I'd always make the point of being able to say hello to the people that I was travelling to. So my first trip to France, of course, I practiced saying bonjour. When I went to Timor, where the second or third language is Portuguese, I learned to say bom dias, mana, bom dias. Wherever you go, you learn to say hello. Raylene, you're cancelled from this question, and any other Aboriginal people from the Pilbara, you're not allowed to answer either. Can anybody tell me hello if you're in the West Pilbara? Waiba, thank you very much. Waiba, can we just practice that? If you're in the West Pilbara, down around Raylene's mob, anywhere from Nullama, Injabundi country to the west, it's Waiba. Waiba. Beautiful, thank you very much. If you come over to where I live in Port Hedland or travel up on the East Pilbara country and up into the mountains where the Yinhawangka, Bunjima and Nyiyaparli people have their traditional lands, you'll say something completely different, and we've got to relearn rolling R's. You know how we've cancelled rolling R's in Australian English? You've got to relearn rolling R's. So this is one advantage of learning Aboriginal languages, is we get to learn how to do rolling R's again. And I think as a Macrae, that's a really good thing. So if you're coming to the Pilbara in the eastern side, dealing with the language groups that I work for, down to the Gariara people in Port Hedland, you'll say Tanaru. Can you have a go at that, please? Tanaru. Beautiful, thank you. Any Noongars here want to tell us what we'd say if we met you in the street? Anybody know what we'd say to a Noongar person if we met them in the street? Kaya. Kaya. So wherever you go around Australia, you can say hello to people in their language, and that's a really terrific thing to do. We do it when we go to Bali. Salamat pagi, Ibu, how are you? Yeah. Apa kabar, baik. So we do that, we learn that pretty easily, but we don't yet make the effort to all know, and I'm one of them, to all know the languages of the country that we're travelling in. So, West Pilbara, Waiba, once again please, Waiba. Excellent. East Pilbara and up in the hills, Tanaru. You've nearly got the rolling R's going too, well done. Folks, Pilbara Aboriginal Corporations and Enterprises has been around for a while. It's had a resurgence in the last few years because of the resurgence of Aboriginal businesses and corporations, largely, of course, on the back of native title, but also because Aboriginal corporations are maturing, developing skills, resources, resilience, and looking at new opportunities. You just saw Raylene here talking about Murajuga's work out on the Burrup Peninsula, and that is happening. In fact, they feature in this little slide presentation I'm about to do, but that is happening across the Pilbara. This is a photo of the Treasurer, Minister for Energy, and Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, the Honourable Ben Wyatt, on his first visit outside of Perth, having just been sworn in as the new minister in the new government on the 7th of April this year. And he's meeting with the executive of the Pilbara Aboriginal Corporations and Enterprises at Wonka Maya in South Hedland. Wonka Maya. Wonka means talking, Maya means house, so talking house. It's the Pilbara Language Centre. And he met with the Pilbara Aboriginal Corporations and Enterprises in April, left a challenge. Said, everybody's been complaining, we've got no money, I need you to come up with 3 challenges and ideas and solutions that we can do today just by doing things better, by doing things not the same, by actually changing the way we go about our business. Not adding more money, just changing the way we go about our business. So that was an interesting challenge, and it represented in some ways a maturation of PACE's work with government, because PACE had been a harsh critic of the previous government, and I've got to say, if Brendan Grills is here, an exception to the National Party, because they actually did try and work quite differently to the previous government's agenda of closure of communities and attempted to establish a different dialogue. But PACE's work with the new government is now based on one of a challenge from government to the people to come back with a response, and that's what we're working on. PACE's membership is diverse. We operate from the very West Pilbara way out into the East Pilbara and into the Western Desert. So if I run through those down, on the bottom right-hand side, for example, Ashburton Aboriginal Corporation has a station in the West Pilbara, Petermullah, and one also way out in the East Pilbara, Mount Divide. And they have others as well. So that's from the West Pilbara, and then you can see all the way, the one in the centre with those lovely desert flowers, Woodlac, Western Desert Lands Aboriginal Corporation. So that's the geographic breadth of PACE members. And when I quickly just give you a snapshot, this is like product placement half hour really, because I'm going to give you a snapshot of every corporation's key economic functions or community service functions in the next 5 or 10 minutes. But you can see that breadth, apart from having the best logos in the whole country, because all of them are just fantastic. I mean, they're colourful, bright, they have traditional stories embedded in all of them. They're also representative of the changing Pilbara economic landscape where Aboriginal corporations are making a mark. And in some ways, this new set of members represents the core of an Aboriginal Chamber of Commerce. That Chamber of Commerce is doing really some extraordinary things, and I'm just going to, this is a product placement area. In Murrujuga Land and Sea Unit, you've just heard they're doing a joint venture on the development of new aquaculture product, the first of its kind that I'm aware of on that sort of scale in the Pilbara. Extraordinary announcement, well done you guys. But they also have just finalised a plan for $25 million development of the country that they're supervisors, managers of, across the Burrup, that will include a tourism precinct on a scale that is necessary to reflect the kind of iconic importance that the petroglyphs on the Burrup have, not just for us in Western Australia, but globally. And we won't tell, well, some people would know that the Burrup might be the iconic point, but the number of petroglyphs across the Pilbara is astounding. And it was the preeminent form of permanent art expressed by Pilbara Aboriginal people right across the region. Because there aren't, for example, like we see in Arnhem Land, the overhang rock faces where you can do, not on the scale that you see in Arnhem Land, overhang rock faces where you could do ochre-based paintings that you could do year on year on year and have those there for 20,000 years. In the Pilbara, those things just got wiped out by cyclones, heat and all the other things. So petroglyphs became the means by which people did permanent recordings of culture and art and language and stories and place and law and religion and cosmology and spirituality, all those things wrapped up. Powerful stuff. And the Burrup's the iconic representation of something that actually is Pilbara-wide. It's a Pilbara-wide activity. Nullamur Injibandi, Roban-based, but run the iconic Wim Creek pub. Anybody been for a meal or a beer at the Wim Creek pub? They are still one of the best pubs in the state. Seriously, it is just still one of the best pubs in the state. They also have now just taken on the lease from City of Karratha for the management of the old historic town of Cossack. And in addition to that, they also have the licence to run Irumagadu Cafe in Roban, which produces one of the best coffees in the Pilbara. And they run the TAFE canteens in both Karratha and Headland. Ashburton, I don't know how many plugs I can give you, Janet, but here we go again with Ashburton. Pilbara's largest job network provider, doing some remarkable things. They've held the line about protecting Aboriginal people's interests and rights when some of the community, some of the obligations for work for the dole programs have been ineffective and wrong and misguided. These guys have tried to make it work and given not only Aboriginal people the best possible service that they can within the contract they have, but also represented Aboriginal people's interests back to Canberra in a way that has caused a bit of a reflection about whether the current format is the right way to go. Well done to you guys. AICD governance training last year was run by IBN and the Department of Regional Development, 47 participants from 13 different organisations doing AICD accredited directors training. That's the kind of layering of skills and knowledge and expertise that we are going to, through PACE, continue to do over the coming years. And Woodlac, that Western Desert Lands Aboriginal Corporation, the Gigi project, it's an early childhood project using occupational therapists, language therapists and a whole bunch of allied health professionals doing work all through the Eastern Pilbara and Western Desert Lands. I'm going to start from the bottom because this photo is out of Karijini, and the Karijini experience, if you've not been, you're missing out. It's in its third year of major sort of commercial presentation, sixth year of operation if you count the sort of long table stuff that the Tom Price Chamber of Commerce did as a precursor to what we now see. But Karijini experience is delivered by a not-for-profit organisation called Nintiri, based out of Tom Price. Its premier biggest sponsors are in fact Aboriginal corporations, both who are also charities. So not resource companies, not tourism companies, but Aboriginal corporations and community associations delivering arguably the most powerful cultural and on-country experience, mixed with a whole bunch of other art and performance art and camping experience in Western Australia's most extraordinary secret place, Karijini. Each year operates in April next year. James, what date? 17th to the 22nd of April. Put it in your diaries today, because if you don't get there, you'll be really upset. And then going from bottom to top, Nullama Nura. Nura is land, so this is Nullama Land. This is a company owned by the Nullama Aboriginal Corporation. They did the first transfer of native title lands on unallocated Crown land across to freehold of anybody in Western Australia. So you think about the complexities of native title, and to get that transfer done was an extraordinary thing. Nullama Nura did that in Roban. They also do housing development, they run a pastoral station, they've got a number of other commercial interests and an elders village in Roban. Kalka Niabali do labour hire, community gardens. They do their community gardens work in Marble Bar in a joint venture with Nana Corporation, which is a $2 billion Inupiat company owned by an Alaskan Native American company. Nana Corporation have partnered with Kalka Niabali to do that community garden in Marble Bar and elsewhere. Great stuff. They do civil works, contracts and labour hire. And Guruma Matadenera is community advocacy, land and heritage surveys. They only just opened their office in Karratha last year. So they're new, growing. They've just put a really fantastic base down. All of their directors have been really motivated and focused, and they are going to be really important people, not just organisation, not just for their own people, but as part of this network across the Pilbara. And the list continues. The Yinhawangka Aboriginal Corporation represents the group who've just now had their determination of native title on country in Rockley Station last month. If you can try and imagine what it's like to be out in the West Pilbara, out on Rockley Station, a pastoral lease held by Rio Tinto and maybe passing over, I hope it's passing over to some traditional owners, but out on country and then seeing a federal court judge saying, I'm here to, in Australian law, tell you that after Eddie Mabo and the passage of the Native Title Act, I'm here confirming what you've always known. It's always been your country, and it is now. That the idea that you were never here, or that it was an empty land, was a lie. To hear that said on country to the mob when they are having confirmation of a 25-year battle to have their rights recognised is an extraordinary thing. So congratulations, Yinhawangka people. Yamatji Malpa, this is a legal native title heritage service, one of the biggest in Australia. They operate from Geraldton through Murchison, Gascoyne and up into the Pilbara. Malpa, by the way, Yamatji, some people might know the word Yamatji for the Geraldton mob. Malpa is the word that Aboriginal people use for themselves collectively. So Yamatji Malpa kind of says, oh, it's from this mob all the way up to that mob. That's the name of that corporation. They're also running the Yule River Bush Meeting, which is a traditional bush meeting, and even before it was resumed and resurrected in recent years, this was a traditional place where Aboriginal people would come together when they had no rights, when they were still flora and fauna. They would walk or get on a truck or hitchhike or find some way to get to a bush meeting down on Yule River. And it's an extraordinary place to meet. It's a powerful place, and Yamatji Malpa are now the key hosts, and IBN are also a sponsor and a few other organisations of that now happening on an annual basis. Goomela Aboriginal Corporation arose out of an agreement with Rio Tinto 20 years ago next month. It's one of the oldest operating corporations, and one of the earliest land use agreements was the Yandi land use agreement. They own the Karijini Eco Retreat in Karijini National Park. They're also running a Commonwealth Government program. I've still got 3 minutes. They also run a Pilbara-wide Aboriginal program under a Commonwealth contract for childhood development. And finally, in this list of Amazing Pace members is the other corporation that I work for, the IBN Corporation. We run the Pilbara's, I think it's the only large-scale commercial Pilbara native plant nursery. We've got capacity for 300,000 seedlings, a couple of hardening areas, and we provide commercial scale plant supplies across the Pilbara, and that's expanding. We also own our own labour hire company, Indigenous Mining and Marine Services, based out of Wedge Street in Port Hedland and working across the Pilbara for many other organisations. A couple of quick notes. Pilbara people are long-term residents. They have diverse interests, developing investments and partnerships, customising services and influencing government policy. And I'm running really quick because I know I'm standing between you and a coffee. In 2011, the statistics from the ABS said that there were 52,000 people in total in the Pilbara and about 6,000 Aboriginal people. In the 2016 census, the number of people living in the Pilbara had dropped by a bit over 4,000 people to 48,000 people, and the number of Aboriginal people living in the Pilbara had increased by 1,000. The number of Aboriginal people as a proportion of the total population is something in the order of 17 or 18%. In other words, more than 1 in 6 people are Aboriginal people. That is, and given that Aboriginal people under-participate and under-report to the census, I suspect it's closer to 1 in 5. Whatever we're doing, whatever you're doing, it needs, as you think about the new Pilbara, it needs to shift, because those corporations that I've just listed and another 10 or 20 others, in the next 10 years will be collectively administering in excess of $2 billion worth of investment monies. Aboriginal people collectively, the Malpa mob, will be in control of the single largest investment pot in the Pilbara. They'll have diverse corporate interests, they'll have diverse community interests, they'll have diverse land interests and family interests, but collectively offer an opportunity for a kind of rebuilding and creation of a Pilbara that there is no map for. I had this discussion earlier today. There is no template anywhere in the world where you can see Aboriginal people or native title holders or Indigenous people anywhere in the world who are sitting on the scale of resources and capacity and enterprise and drive that exists in the Pilbara today and the coming decade, There is no historical or current example where we can go and take a lesson from. Everything that we do is going to have to be done together and moving forward. Everything that we have a chance to do is going to, for the Pilbara, is going to have to, if it's going to be successful, involve Aboriginal people. Pilbara Aboriginal Corporations and Enterprises is a good place to start. Thanks for your interest.